Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Nacho Average Tabletop. I'm Zach,
And I'm Pepper.
and today we are table talking about dual games, which I think has been a hot topic over the last year or so as more and more of these dual style games have been coming out, and more of them are being released or are being shown to be released here over the next couple of years based on previous games and stuff. I think one of the ones that's kind of releasing like this week as of us filming this is Azul Duel, which yeah, I figured that one could possibly be one that was coming just because they've already had what four versions of Azul, so does not surprise me at all that they would make a dual version with everyone else doing that. Now we just need, unless it's already out there, the Azul rolling right.
Ooh, yes, we do need that. That is
We
the
don't have that yet,
it's the last thing. But yeah,
but
this is we're gonna see if our designers were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Should there be this many dual games? And you're like, how many could there be? Sure, you got a few here in this picture. How many more could there possibly be? And we go over to this, and we can fill the whole screen and more. There were multiple games left off of this list, and I didn't even know there were this many. Um, but yeah, this has gotten a little out of hand, it seems.
yeah, it definitely seems to have taken off here in the last couple of years. Some of these are definitely from several years ago. With I think this whole thing kind of started with, or at least the one I would point to. There may have been, I think some of these on this list might have even technically come up before that, but kind of the one that I think of when I think of duel games is Seven Wonders Duel, just because of how popular it's become. I think it's actually on BGG outshined its predecessor, Seven Wonders, which is already thought of as a pretty good game, and I'm sure some people still probably prefer that over Seven Wonders Duel, which is totally fine. Um, but yeah, that came out. I was kind of shocked. I did not realize it already came out like 10 years ago. And it was, I think it's currently ranked number 20 on Board Game Geek, which is crazy considering it's a two-player only game. And yeah, it's based off of another game in a way. It
Yeah.
has some changes, some pretty significant changes that I think are all really, really good changes, and they work amazingly. And it kind of like set this insanely high bar for dual games, I think.
Yeah, I think so. That one just it just felt so clever and so magical how they took a game that I think was all right. It's decent, the original Seven Wonders, but it's not something I would seek out. But this one just pumped it full of so much excitement with those multiple kind of instant win conditions that they threw in there, which I mean are just crazy things to put in your game. To have not only one but two of them, and to feel like all three routes are equally balanced, and just really streamlining the system, having a great drafting, a way to draft with only two players. Choosing a mechanism like drafting that's usually geared towards multiple hands of cards with four or five players, but to specialize it for two players, it just was the perfect dual game, and I think it still is, and I think it has really spoiled us, and everything else that comes out with the name Duel, at least for the first few of them, I just got really, really excited because of that history with Seven Wonders Duel. I'm like, oh, another one? This is going to be awesome. I just don't feel anything has been able to live up.
Yeah, and nothing in my that I've played so far, and I wouldn't say I've played a ton of them, but most of them have not captured that level of magic, which I think is definitely top 100 on Board Game Geek worthy. So it already is a very solid game, so it's going to be hard to compete with that kind of thing. But yeah, it definitely puts something on the title of dual games, and yeah, just makes it very hard. But now it's kind of with all these games now, it's kind of diluted it a little bit, and I'm like, well, which ones are actually going to be the good ones, if there are any? I think two that have stood out here, and they kind of came out a couple of years ago, are probably Splendor Duel and Wingspan Asia. So, not technically didn't call itself Wingspan Duel, but is the two-player kind of version potentially of Wingspan. But it allows you to. It's more of an expansion than kind of a standalone game, like I think most of the rest of these are. So it's a little bit of an expansion, but at the same time, it can stand alone as a two-player only game. And then Splendor Duel, obviously based off a very popular game, and a dual version of that, and coming back to Bruno Catala. So I think that one added a little extra level of excitement having him involved, knowing he was involved in the Seven Wonders duel. But I think those two have kind of been the other standouts, maybe, that have come
Yeah,
out.
I would say so. Those were kind of the only ones that I ever remember making like a big impact. Splendor Duel obviously got a huge uh, deal of attention when that came out, and I don't know if Wingspan Asia did that much like as a dual game, but obviously in the Wingspan series, it's gonna make an impact.
Right. Yeah. I think it has not, because it didn't call itself like Wingspan Duel or something like that. It has not caught on as that being their dual game because a lot of people have been like in their predictions of, oh, what's going to be announced next? Oh, Wingspan Duel. And
Oh,
I'm always like, oh, Wingspan Duel, I feel like it's already come out. Not saying they couldn't make one also called Wingspan Duel, but I don't think they will based on the fact that they have that one. Uh but yeah, part of me wonders what. I mean, I guess these have kind of some of these have come out a few years ago, but there's now all of a sudden, like just this last year or so, like tons and tons of them, and I just wonder why it's taken like almost 10 years from Seven Wonders Duel's success for these games to now be like, okay, we're gonna make our main version of our game and then a dual version of the game. Um, and yeah, I can't figure out why we had that lull period of like some, but not no consistency in like that style of game. Um,
yeah,
or
yeah. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure. Maybe just Splendor Duel. They're like, oh, we're still doing this, and then everyone just jumps on the wagon.
yeah, it could have been Splendor Duel that re reinvigorated the dual games thing. Um, but yeah, because those ones have had some success, I'd say Wingspan is not different from really normal Wingspan. It's just kind of an expansion to that. But otherwise, the Seven Wonders Duel and Splinter Duel are a decent amount different than their original games. They have similarities, but they are different enough that I'm like, if you liked one, you could own both. I don't think you'd necessarily be like, oh, I can only own this. Maybe if you exclusively always played two-player games or at two players, then maybe you would just have the dual versions. But um, what do you think, Pepper? Do dual games have to be pretty different from their original versions to exist?
If they're gonna be a standalone game and purchase, I think they do have to feel quite a bit different. Obviously, it's a fine line. You do have to keep some of the things, otherwise it's not even related other than name and possibly theme. But like just like Everdell, I guess I have not played Everdell Duel, but it seems like every Everdell game that they've released, which is like five more base games past the first one, I'm like, it just kind of looks like the same thing again and again and again. Just new cards and different things, but it just feels the same. Like you said, Wingspan it's an expansion. It adds to the base game if you want to play it that way. But just a standalone purchase, not an expansion, I think it's got to be different. It's got to feel different. It can't just be we bettered the two-player version of the game, so here's Duel. Just if you're gonna do that, just put it in the base game, I say, as a variant or maybe a little expansion.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. If it is just kind of a slight tweak on things. I don't think it necessarily needs to be its own standalone game. I guess kind of like Wingspan. Yeah, I would probably label it as an expansion, but I guess Wingspan technically is standalone, or Wingspan Asia is, I think, standalone. I don't believe you need the base game for that if you're playing it just two. Because I think it's got, does it have two boards, or does it have more than that? Now I
I
don't
think it
remember.
is. I think it has two boards.
I do not remember off the top of my head, but um, yeah, I think they definitely have to be different. Just just because, yeah, otherwise you could just make it an expansion or have it in that base game. Which I know a lot of games have, well, not a lot, but I think less and less of them maybe have this because people know, and I think this is another reason why dual games have kind of started getting really hot, is I think people know a lot of people tend to play games at maybe the two-player count. I think that's, if I was guessing, I would say that's probably one of the highest percentage kind of played outside of, um, I guess I don't know. Maybe there's more solo players. Uh,
I think
I
two
don't know.
would be more.
I think they're kind of trying to get rid of more and more of those kind of like fake kind of players you put
Yeah.
in to kind of block things in a two-player version of a game. But even if, I mean, yeah, I think most of those times, those experiences are not necessarily all that fun when it's like, oh, if it's a worker placement game, put these ones on those spots. And
Yeah.
there's really no reasoning why they're going on those spots specifically outside of, I'm sure the designer of the game or, through play testing and stuff, they're like, oh, well, these spots are going to be, taken and stuff more often. So block, so and so spots and whatever to make it make sense, sure. I feel like sometimes that isn't always that exciting. So if you did make it more like a Wingspan Asia, where you're adding kind of a this unique board that you're only using in a two-player game, if you did something like cooler like that versus just kind of like, oh, use these, another player color to do this kind of thing. Uh, I think that would be a great kind of thing. If I guess even if it wasn't in the base game, having that as an expansion,
Yeah.
I think I would enjoy that a lot more than some of these. Um, I guess in that case, I would agree that you could have a dual version. If the dual or the two-player version of your current game is so.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, have an expansion as kind of a dual version, some extra special stuff you're doing in specifically a two-player game.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it could just come down to how you market it. And if you are trying to say this is a game all in itself, I feel like that could be a little misleading. Where if they did say, here, this will make the two-player version better, you can maybe use it as a standalone, possibly, or an expansion. I think that I'd be a little more forgiving for the amount of them if they did kind of treat it like that and say this is meant to be kind of incorporated with that base game to improve the two-player count. But it just feels to me, I mean, when I look at all these in such a short period of time, I'm like, okay, there's got to be some cash grabs in here. There's got to be like, let's just capitalize on these hot dual games. Let's take Everdell, Isle of Caps, all these Furnace, King of Tokyo, Tokaido, all these big games, make dual versions. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I trust that this is really because there's a great idea behind it, or if it's more, let's make another game in this series. That'll be fun. That'll also be a lot of money.
Right. Because, yeah, that gets us into kind of the discussion of if they've already got a solid two-player, if the experience at two players of your original game is already great, does it need a dual game? Kind of like a Duel. I feel like that's a pretty solid game at two. I don't I actually feel like then you start kind of having a little bit more back and forth because you kind of know exactly what they're going to take versus, especially if you played at the max player count of four, it's going to be maybe potentially a little more chaos depending on how much people have played the game and stuff. If it's head to head, you're going to be able to tell kind of how, I guess, the levels of play there. And then I guess going to Furnace. That one is one where I believe you are was it rolling a die
I think
and
so.
then putting it on the next open space. I don't, if they could make that feel even cooler, I would be fine with this. But I felt like that already also worked pretty well at two players. And I have not played all of these, actually not most of them, and some of them I don't think are even out yet. So I can't speak specifically for everyone, but I just know like some of these already play good at two, and I don't know. Are they the other part is like I have not played Azul Duel yet. It's on Board Game Arena. I'm hoping to play it sooner than later. But say I love that game. Does it work specifically because it's at two players, or could they have made it a four-player game and now you're denying me the option to use this as a four-player game? Maybe it's that good. Like Seven Wonders Duel, I feel like works great at two players because of the way the cards work going back and forth. I don't think you could make that. I
Yeah.
mean, there's probably a way you could make it four players, but I think you'd be taking away what makes it great. And some of the dual games, I just wonder, like, could these be, changed slightly in ways that would have made them a full game experience as well? Um, and you could have had it be 2 to 4. Maybe it plays really, really well at two, but it's still solid at four if you just change some things. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough, and yeah, like Seven Wonders Duel, I have thought before. I'm like, it's crazy, but I want to take what's in Seven Wonders Duel and make it great for higher player counts. So it's like that would be crazy. I could see something like that happening, but I would actually be down for a Seven Wonders Duel 4-player game.
Seven Wonders Dual Quad. But yeah, no, I totally agree. And yeah, I'm not to say I'm actually pretty excited to try some of these, especially some of these new ones like Quacks and Quedlinburg Duel. I'm definitely going to be trying that. I'm interested because that does seem like it could have a concept in there that maybe could be interesting compared to what the main game is. So, like some of these, I think are good ideas where I could see, yeah, you could do something unique with a dual version of that. But then also that makes me think I could see you doing something with Clax and Cleveland in general that could be cool, and you could incorporate more players too. I don't,
Yeah.
who knows? But yeah, not to say not excited about these because I definitely am, and I've seen a couple of these on Board Game Arena that I have not played yet. So hopefully we'll get a chance to play them this year, and maybe by the end of the year, if we've played some of these, we'll do a little bit of a ranking of our favorite duel games.
Yes. Yeah, we'll definitely have to try Azul Duel for sure. Um, yeah, this I don't know. It's you just never know at this point what you're gonna get, and I feel like a lot of them they are good games. Like they're very kind of multiplayer solo games that they're kind of taking. Because Quacks and Quedlinburg, there's not too much interaction there. So it's like, what are we doing? It feels like a two-player game has to have interaction. So I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of them kind of go into just creating like a cool mini game drafting system, and that's kind of the unique twist with the game. While the actual pretty much whole rest of the game, the actual meat of the game, is pretty much untouched. But yeah, I'm looking forward to. I'm hoping to play at least two, three of these games pretty soon. Like you said, a few of them are on Board Game Arena. So yeah, comment below which ones you want to hear about the most. I'm sure it's going to be Azul Duel. At least that one rhymes. I like that.
Would you rather it be called a duel? No.
No, never. A doodle.
But yeah, I think we're going. Even though we've already got way too many in, we've talked about that. We are going to probably do top 10 games we'd like to see dual versions of, uh, just as a list.
Yes.
It's crazy. Maybe it could even be more predictions than than anything because the way things are going, I would not be surprised. But yeah, I think that was a good point you made there about games with low interaction. Um, I feel like we got into the hobby kind of after the Euro phase of games where there was a lot of player conflict and stuff, and those were kind of the popular ones of the days. And I think now a lot of games have gotten to be much more kind of a solo player experience. Everyone's playing their own thing, kind of, and
Yeah.
very minimal interaction. And I wonder if this is kind of people's, if these do sell well, and uh, I hope hopefully a lot of them do, or some of them at least do sell well, so that they can continue refining what makes a great duel game. Maybe it will kind of push back to some of the bigger Euro games also
Yeah.
having a little bit more conflict because people see that, I feel like they're designing away from that. So maybe this is like, oh, this gives me an opportunity to do that because when you're just head to head,
Yeah.
it can still feel mean, but it's usually not. I don't know. It's a little bit different feeling than if it's a four-player game and everyone piles up on one player, whether it be, all like a colluded effort, or if it just happens to be that way, that probably feels kind of negative. Whereas this puts you in a little bit more of a space of, okay, I know what I'm getting into. It's just one versus one. Um,
Yeah.
maybe it'll be a little bit of
Yeah.
a renaissance of that coming back afterwards. If these are received well, some of these new ones especially.
Yeah. I hope they are.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know in the comments below. Yeah, if you've liked any of these as well, that we should try out, especially some of the older ones. Like I think they might have even come out before Seven Wonders Duel, like the Cave versus Cave, or Zularedo Duel, or Bonanza the Duel. Yeah, let us know in the comments below if there are any of these that you really, really love, because yeah, we'd love to try out the good ones.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we hope to see you on our next video, and as always, don't forget to keep on nibbling on our content.